Among the blandest great racing drivers who ever lived was Earl Cooper, who, in 1913, won the national championship for the Stutz Motor Company. In 1915, Cooper and Stutz won it a second time. In 1917, they won it for the third time. But in 1920, Stutz was forced into a battle for its existence. From January to April, a clique of predatory swashbucklers from Wall Street battled for control of Stutz, and they were more ruthless than any of the racing drivers Cooper confronted on the 2-mile Cleveland boards, or Corona's Culvert Edge Circle, or around Death Curve at Santa Monica's Grand Prix. Now truly, this is saying something, because Cooper's competition on those lethal tracks constituted America's earliest racing champions. Among them were Barney Oldfield, the braggart, Dario Resta, the sophisticated dandy, professional Ralph De Palma, the consummate nemesis of Oldfield and Resta, Wild Bob Berman and Terrible Teddy Tetzlaff, the headlong chargers, and Eddie Rickenbacker, who later scored the most enemy kills as a fighter pilot in the Great War. All of them were as fast as Cooper, and certainly raced with more flair, yet Cooper beat them more frequently than they did him. Earl Cooper was a colorless nobody who came to racing without a cent to his name and remained bland as ever when he emerged from racing unscathed 20 dangerous seasons later. He lived out some of his last days in Indianapolis running his own Stutz agency. Cooper was fortunate because while racing, he cared for a passenger and riding mechanic and invaluable friend in Reeves Dutton. Likewise, Cooper was cruelly hindered by Harry Stutz, his irascible boss, who appeared to exist for the sheer pleasure of watching his huge white Bearcats with their red numbers and long-stroke engines, humbling Hudsons, Mercers, Appersons, Marmons, Duesenbergs, Packards, Chrysler, and especially the snobbish foreign makes of Peugeot, Sunbeam, Delage, Benz, and Fiat. The namesake of the Stutz Motor Company was tyrant Harry Stutz, who dictated the time trial speeds and the racing averages that Earl Cooper and the rest of Stutz factory drivers were expected to meet. Woe to any of them if they failed to meet or even exceeded his demands. Stutz was also a bad sport. He pitched tantrums whenever his Bearcats broke down and threatened to boycott those races where things went against him. His attitude towards Cooper was ambivalent. He called him the country's greatest racing driver, yet still wouldn't use his name in Stutz advertisements. He wouldn't even assign him his own factory Bearcat. Throughout his career, Cooper was loosely sponsored by the Stutz agents on the West Coast and California. Now this proved to be a blessing because Harry Stutz from time to time would arbitrarily withdraw his factory team from all the races. Thus Cooper would be forced to race on in spite of him. Without the help of Reeves Dutton, Cooper might have won no races at all. Dutton was the phenomenal, self-taught teenage mechanic whom Cooper had met in California, and Dutton made all the difference. One especially idiotic decree of Harry Stutz was that Stutz Racing Bearcats would race with the same gearing as the street model Bearcats, an impossible handicap for Cooper to overcome. Old Dutton got around it by designing and building secret gears for Cooper's, one that could have cost he and Cooper their jobs had Harry Stutz ever found out. Well, it's small wonder that Cooper took Dutton with him whenever he was racing, including the Grand Prix of Monza and Monte Carlo and even Corona, where the two of them flew end over end while traveling at better than 100 miles per hour. A bitter Wall Street battle fought in 1920 for control of the Stutz Motor Company didn't put Stutz out of business. They limped along until 1938. But the greedy battle so weakened the firm that it's amazing Stutz survived it all. It all started when Alan Ryan, a young entrepreneur who in 1916, after purchasing controlling interest in Stutz and appointing himself as president, came under brutal attack from a syndicate of enemy tycoons who were scheming to rip control of Stutz away from him. The greedy syndicate was unsuccessful, but aided and abetted by Ryan's own vengeful father, who wasn't on speaking terms with his son, succeeded in getting Stutz shares removed from the stock market and having Ryan thrown off the Wall Street exchange. Previously a profitable businessman, Ryan suddenly became one of the worst bankrupts in American history. Somehow, he maintained control of Stutz, but the losing battle with the syndicate and his estranged, hate-filled father left the motor car company as spent and exhausted as Ryan himself. The nearly bankrupt Stutz was on the sand at Daytona Beach in 1928 and unexpectedly got a last opportunity for fame in the racing sense. Frank Lockhart, the season's Indianapolis 500 champion and a most sensational personality of the era, somehow talked Stutz and $13,000 of its dwindling dollars into sponsoring his hair-raising attempt at breaking the land speed record. Frank Moskowitz, Stutz's new president, absolutely believed Lockhart when the errant mechanical genius guaranteed that he and his brain trust could get a Stutz Blackhawk going 330 miles an hour on the sands. Well, Lockhart was close, but the Stutz Blackhawk suffered a pair of violent tire blowouts at speed, with the second being the end of itself and Lockhart. The only glory Stutz got out of the disaster was when Moskowitz became a hero for fishing Lockhart out of the Daytona surf and possibly saving him from drowning during Lockhart's first non-fatal blowout. The only things that Alan Ryan, the ruined president of Stutz, ever got from the multi-million-dollar estate of his irascible father was a set of white pearl shirt studs. Joe Scalzo.